Hello and welcome to day 13 of our November daily draw. For today we are going to be drawing a baby deer. So let's go ahead and get started. Grab those pencils and a blank piece of paper. I'll be using a Sharpie though so you can see my lines. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our paper is vertical, which means up and down. And we're going to draw a square in the top right corner. And since today is the 13th, we'll go ahead and write that number 13. And you can do it any kind of style you would like. But I'll be filling those parts in later. So there is my number 13. Now for the deer, we want to make sure that it's closer to the bottom of the paper because it is sleeping. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a backward C, but we're going to extend the bottom a little bit farther. And then we'll draw a slightly curved line at the end. And then start back at the top and bring that down. So you want to make sure that it curves. We'll come back to the face in just a bit, but for those ears, they're kind of like in teardrop shapes. You curve up and then back down. And then curve up and back down. Do you notice how this one is overlapping the head? That one's closest to us. So we do need to show a little bit of the inside of the ear by drawing somewhat of a slanted S. Then we'll get started with the foot by curving down and then curve back up. And draw a curved line. We're going to go on the right side of the head. Curve down and over, and we'll do that again. Now we're going to draw that back leg. It can be a little bit confusing, so we do want to start roughly at the top of the forehead by curving up and over. It's as if you're bringing that curve down because then you curve and then go straight. Then at the point where the nose is, now curve up, and that's the basically like the kneecap of the deer. Now we do need to draw our deer's back that then goes into a tail. So we're going to start where the ear is, and we're going to curve, and then curve up, and then all the way down, and we'll add just a few up and down lines for the tail. Now you can draw those eyes open or closed, that's up to you, but for my eyes I'm drawing them closed with just a small little eyelash. And then for the nose I'm going to curve out and then down. Now, before you start outlining your picture, please make sure you do erase this line here and that line here. And that's all you need to do for your deer. So when you are done, it should look something like this. So I'm going to put my pencil aside because I no longer need it, and I'm just going to go ahead and outline everything and fill in parts of that number 13. So as you are outlining your picture, make sure your Sharpie has that cap on the back and you're holding low and going slow. Again, your numbers can look any way you would like for them to. Just make sure to take your time with the outlining. And I'm just going to fill in this area right here with my Sharpie. But you can do that in any color that you would like. And I'll also fill in that 3. Alright, and just be extra careful as you're going around that 3. If you wanted to use a bigger black marker, you could do that as well. And then we can go ahead and get started with outlining. Remember, take your time with those lines. And make sure that that part of the head is erased. And I'm also going to add just a small line there to show that that's the hoof. And curve up, hop over the head, down and back. And almost done with that tail. And then I'll finish the back and start outline the eye. So when you are done with your deer, I'm going to fix that eyelash real quickly. When you are done, you're going to go ahead and put that Sharpie away and just take out an eraser and erase any of those pencil lines you may see on your paper. Now you could leave your deer like this, or you could go ahead and color it. That is totally up to you. Just make sure that all of your lines are connected. So I'm just going ahead, erasing those pencil lines. And now I'm going to start coloring. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my watercolors and I'm going to paint my deer a light brown. Now I don't want to go too dark on that just because baby deers, they tend to have like a lighter color. It's almost like a yellow orange almost, but I am going to just take some brown and I'm just going to paint my deer. Now I don't want to paint the entire baby deer brown just because there are some areas that are in white. So underneath the tail I'm going to make sure that it's not painted, as well as a little bit on the nose. Just make sure you are spreading that color around. And also I don't want to paint inside the ears right here. So be extra careful as you are painting your deer. Now you don't have to use watercolors if you don't want to. You could use any sort of art material. I'm just going to go ahead and spread that paint. And I'm going to leave that mouth just a little bit white, but I do want to paint that leg. Just try your best to get as close as you can. Now I do need to wait for that to dry a little bit, so I am actually going to switch gears for a little while and use my colored pencils. Because I am going to color the inside of the ears and just do a little bit of shading as this dries. But I do want to color those hooves, so I'm just going to take my dark brown and fill that in. And also the nose. And I also do want to have just a little bit of shading inside of that ear. So I'm pressing really light with my colored pencil. And after that, I'm just going to add some lines for fluff coming out of the ears, making it very subtle. Now, if your picture is dry, you can always go in with that colored pencil and do some shading as well. So we're just doing a little bit of that extra shading here and there. And again, you don't have to use the same art materials that I'm using. You can use whatever art materials that you have. So there is my shading on my deer. You can add just a little bit more as it dries. You can switch up different colors of brown. That is up to you. I'm actually switched to my lighter brown just so I can have that nice gradient. But this does work best if your deer is completely dry, if you did use watercolors, just like I did. You can even get underneath the head a little bit as well. All right, once that's done, you can also then take some white paint. I have white acrylic paint right here. And I'm just going to add some white spots to the back of my deer. Just because when baby deer are small, they do have those white dots on their backs. And you can make them as big as you want or as small. But I'm just going to go ahead and add those dots. All right, and then once you are done with those spots, we can then move on to a little bit of the background. I'm just going to make sure I have those dots. But before I move on to the dots, there is one last thing for my baby deer that I did forget to mention. I do need to make sure that the tip of the ears are a little bit darker, so I'm actually going to be taking my dark brown and just going over the tips of the ears to make it darker. And if you find that it's not dark enough, you can always switch to black as well. But that way it just looks a little bit more realistic. All right, I'm just going to add a little bit of shading behind that head too. Now you can leave it like this if you would like to, or you can go ahead and add a simple background or any kind of background that you would like. So for mine, I'm going to actually be grabbing some markers and chalk pastels. Let me go ahead and grab my markers first and then my chalk pastels. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some grass around my deer. And I'm just doing this nice soft motions. And I can also add a little bit of shading underneath. All right, and so after I'm done adding that grass, I can add some small leaves to that long grass because I'm actually going to change it to flowers. So there's the leaves, and I'm going to add the flowers next. Now you can choose any color you want for your flowers. I'm going to go with yellow. I'm just adding those flowers. And they don't need to be too heavily detailed, especially because our deer is the main focus of our picture. Now be careful because those white dots might still be a little bit wet. Now that I am done almost with that shading, I'll be switching to chalk pastels. Now for my grass, below my deer, I'm just going to take my light green and pinch and pull. And then blend. Now I like using the yellow green just because it makes it look really nice and warm. A little bit more like fall colors. And then for the background, I'm going to be using yellow. And it's okay to pinch and pull right over those markers because they will not blend. However, be careful as you are coloring around your deer. Those white spots may still be wet, so be extra careful. And I'm just going to softly blend that background. Now you can get a little bit more extensive on that background if you'd like. Maybe you want to add more blades of grass or different colored flowers. Maybe you want some leaves that are falling on the ground since it is November and the leaves are starting to change colors. That is totally up to you because this is your picture of your deer. Now try and get as close as you can to that deer, but do be careful as you've added those spots already. Now again, you can always go back, add some more grass if you would like. You just add those little bits of details here and there with your markers. And that is it for day 13 of our November daily draw. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye!